Good.
Yep.
Welcome in, everyone, to the Bat Flip Podcast. My name is Damien, here with Matt and David. Happy College Football Comes Out This Month Day.
Woo.
So excited for that. But obviously, we are here to talk about baseball and not that. And we might get excited and talk about it a little bit, but that's here nor there. Okay. Obviously, today, as you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, we're going to be basically doing our annual Bat Flip Podcast All-Star Game ballot. Pretty simple. We'll go over. It's already moved to the second phase of voting. Usually we do this in the first phase. We're a little bit later. So blame Matt. It's usually what I do.
Wait a minute.
And then hey, you know what? It doesn't matter. And then we're going to talk about James Wood getting the call up. He was one of the, if not the most prized piece in the return of the Juan Soto trade from the Padres and Nationals a couple years ago. So we'll talk about that. But David, how are you doing this week?
Well, I'm doing all right. You know, Damien, we spent all last week talking about, how bad some of those free agents were doing that signed. And then, the Cubs are playing the Giants, and Matt Chapman hit a home run off of us. And then he went and played the Dodgers and hit 2 home runs off of them. So I'm feeling pretty bad about our our discussion last week on Matt Chapman. But I suppose we'll start charging for reverse jinxes if you need us to.
Yeah, we are the jinx gods.
Yeah, that was a pretty powerful jinx we slapped on there. So, other than that, it's been nice. We had a little vacation this weekend. It was pretty fun. So, how you doing, Matt?
I'm doing pretty good. My team is next on the Matt Chapman kills them list. So we're playing the Ravens and the Giants Tuesday through Thursday. But yeah, I'm doing pretty good. I hated to miss last week. But yeah, I've been pretty good. I've been just hanging out, watching the Braves playing a little bit better. That's been good. They're still a little inconsistent. When you have like 4 All-Stars on the IL all season, it can take you from being the best team in baseball to just being a good team. So, but they've been a little bit better, and I've been pretty excited today. I've kind of become a bit of a hockey fan this year. My team signed literally like every free agent today, so that's been fun to keep up with. But yeah, excited to get back into it. How things been for you, Damien?
Well, as a Laker fan, I do not know anything about my team signing players in free agency because that's not what we have done this year so far. But, I was excited for this past week, and then we had the Matt Chapman jinx, which was not fun. The Giants just absolutely murdered the Dodgers like 2 of the 3 games there. So that wasn't great, but we're heading into to trade deadline month, so I'm excited for that. Like I mentioned, college football is coming out here. My birthday's in a week, so July has never done me wrong. So I'm excited for it to get to start here. But we're doing all right. So let's kind of just overview the All-Star ballot so far and kind of say what we got here and kind of what's set up. So if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see. The NL first baseman is already decided in Bryce Harper, and one of the AL outfielders is already decided in Aaron Judge. They were the leading vote getters from phase 1 of the voting, so they get automatically guaranteed their starting spot in there. And the candidates that are left in phase 2 is not all of them deserve to be here, and we'll get to them as we go through each one. It's all fan voting throughout. You'll see there's a lot of Phillies on here that they just dominate fan voting a lot of the time. And you'll see like the Orioles are represented really well, the Astros too and stuff. But anyways, looking at what we got here, we're at first base. I already talked about Harper in there. So American League, we got Vlad and what?
Yeah, I was gonna say real quick. Harper's on the IL, so with the hamstring injury.
That is true.
And he might be back, but I kind of doubt he plays the All-Star game just because he'll be just barely coming back if he's back by then. But
who's the second vote getter?
I don't know who the second vote getter was, but I mean Freddie Freeman's probably the second best first baseman. So
I was gonna say it might have been Freddie.
He probably was the second vote getter too, but he's the second best first baseman by a pretty good margin. So there's very good chance Freddie Freeman ends up starting the game.
Yeah, there is that. I'm trying to see if I could find it, which nobody has just a good MLB.com. Hello. Freddie was the second vote getter. So,
Yeah.
Jesus, they were the only two over 1 million votes. Matt
Yeah, I
Olson was third with like 300,000.
Yeah, I mean, Matt Olson's not even
Uh,
close to being
Yeah,
an
it's just funny.
all-star caliber this year. So
Anyway, so we can't make a pick on that. So Harper's already locked in on this
Yep.
ballot per se here. So looking at the American League, that's where we'll jump. We got Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Ryan Mountcastle as the two finalists there. I guess let's just do it as like, I mean, I guess we do an overview thing, but I was gonna say like maybe we should do like you guys making the argument for one and the other. It'd be kind of fun. What do you think?
well, we're probably going to agree on this one, but
That's true.
I mean, Vlad Jr. The first base, list in the American League isn't that good this year. Honestly, I mean, you just don't have a ton of standouts. But Vlad Jr. has got a 143 WRC plus. He's hitting almost 300 now, 380 on base, 470 slugging. He does need to slug a little bit more. I do think he still hits the ball on the ground a little bit too much, but he's been a way better this year than he has in the past couple of years. The defense is still a massive issue, but he's hit well enough this year to make up for it. So he's pretty clearly been the best first baseman in the American League, but Mountcastle's been good, and I do want to shout out Carlos Santana. I had no idea that Carlos Santana had been as good as he's been this year. A 120 WRC plus. He's been a positive defender, which is kind of difficult to do at first base. So very good on Carlos Santana for having that good of a year, and part of it that it's been a good signing for the Twins.
I'll be less arguing for Ryan Mountcastle, and I'll be more arguing that Yandy Diaz fumbled the bag. I think he had everything set up to, I think, take this over, and having any sort of success that he had, like similar to last season, would have earned him the nod. And in so similarly to the Tampa Bay Rays being somewhat underwhelming, the fact that it's Vlad Jr. here, who has been really, really strong, right? It says on the screen, they're 13 homers, 50 RBI, 297 average. Like he's had a very strong Vlad Jr. type season, but it's only like a 130 WRC plus. It's not a super special season. I guess it's 143 WRC plus now. He has gotten to a little bit of the slug that we've talked about Vlad Jr. needing to get to. Yandy Diaz last year was a 160 WRC plus hitter, and him not doing that this year is, I think, fumbling the bag a little bit. That this could have been a more exciting race had Yandy Diaz been involved.
Yeah,
I will say Yandy is starting to pick it up. He is on like a 20-game hitting streak right now. You're starting to see that old, but definitely slow start to the season, and just allowed somebody like Vlad, who, there was a lot of pressure kind of coming onto Vlad to start the season, like to perform at a higher level than he had been performing the past couple years. And back to that, like when he had the MVP runner-up or MVP, race season there. And I think he's responded pretty well to it. So obviously we'll pick Vlad here for our first baseman there. So let's jump over to second base, and let's just stay in the American League here. And our two options here, which I think this is another easy one, is Jose Altuve, who has a 304 average, 13 homers, 37 RBIs, and an 822 OPS, or Marcus Semien, who's batting 235 with 11 homers, 44 RBIs, and a 683 OPS. So why are we choosing Marcus Semien?
I'll go for Semien. And I will say that this has come at a poor time. He is in the middle of a horrendous slump right now. Like he was fine. He was at 120 WRC plus to start June. I think this last month he's been one of the worst players in baseball. And Marcus Semien doesn't take days off, so resetting isn't really kind of an option for a guy like that. He's just one of those guys that plays every day. This is one of those kind of slow start. I think he had a slow start a year ago as well, right? He had a bad month and then he picked it up. Semien having a bad month, it happens. It just is coinciding at the worst possible time with this all-star voting. People are going to take one look at this and go, whoa, what the heck is going on with Marcus Semien? I think his end of season numbers will pick it up and reflect. He might even make this all-star game, but this is an easy vote for Jose Altuve, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Marcus Simeon has been pretty rough lately, and I mean, he's got a sub 300 on base percentage and a 92 WRC plus. I will say though, he has a 246 BABIP, so like you mentioned, that'll probably come up some. I don't think he's a super high BABIP player in general, but 246 is really really low, and he also has been one of the best defenders in all of baseball. His defensive value has been incredible this year, so he's still been a very valuable player, but clearly Jose Altuve with his 822 OPS, hitting over 300. He's still an okay defender, not great, but he's good enough. He's been really good for the Astros this year, and who, by the way, are kind of figuring it out. Like they're back over 500. They look to be in a pretty good position right now. So, um, the Jose Altuve has been a pretty big driver behind that. I definitely think he's the pick here, and I mean, there's just not a lot of good options this year at second base too. I mean, Marcus Simeon legitimately with a 683 OPS might be the second best option at second base in the American League this year. I mean, it's this position is just kind of barren in a lot of ways.
By the way, 70 WRC plus in June for Simeon, 211 BABIP. It has really been hindering his abilities. Batting 207 or 202 in June.
Not great. So Semyon, who doesn't hit for a lot of average in June. Let's go to Luis Arias, who has a 314 average on the season and just seems to do nothing but hit for average. 2 homers, 22 RBIs, 738 OPS. Or Ketel Marte, who's hitting 287, 17 homers, 49 RBIs, 874 OPS here. So what do you guys think?
I think clearly Ketel Marte is the pick. I mean, Ketel Marte is on pace for 7 WAR right now. He's having an unbelievable year. I mean, 17 home runs, 141 WRC plus. He's been a very good defender at second base this year. I mean, this guy is incredible. I mean, he's really, really good. He clearly deserves to be the pick. I mean, he's by far been the best second baseman in baseball this year. And I mean, Luis Arias is what he is. He's going to hit for a lot of average, but you know, his own base is still only 350, which is good, but it's not like some crazy elite number. And he doesn't hit for any power. His place, his defense is horrible, and he doesn't really run the bases all that well either. So he's really kind of a one trick guy, and he's good at that one thing. But his overall value, he's been, by Fangraphs WAR, he's been the 17th best first baseman or second baseman in Major League Baseball. And I think he's just not, his overall value is not that great. And I mean, Ketel Marte has been one of the best players in baseball this year, so I clearly pick him.
I am a huge Luis Arias supporter. I think that guy is one of the more underrated players in baseball. Ketel Marte should be the All-Star Game starter at second base. I don't think there's much debate on that front. I want to note that Jonathan India has rebounded, is sporting a 381 on-base percentage and a 124 WRC plus. I also want to note that Jake Cronenworth is back to his old ways. He's got a 121 WRC plus. The ex-Woba for the nerds looks really, really good. And then I also want to throw Bryce Terang in the mix.
I was about to mention Bryce Terang.
Bryce Terang has 28 stolen bases, 6 homers, including a grand slam against the Cubs yesterday, I think, which the Brewers hit 2 grand slams against the Cubs this weekend, and I don't remember the last grand slam I've seen the Cubs hit, so that's about right. But Terang's got a 354 on base, 120 WRC plus. He's been excellent for the Brewers, who are leading the NL Central, starting to pull away, looking really, really good there, and he's been a big reason why I might have given the nod to Terang over Ketel Marte, because we know Ketel Marte is a good player, but like Bryce Terang has actually had a more impressive season relative to expectations based on how he was kind of expected coming into the year.
Yeah, and you mentioned Jake Cronenworth too. Is he playing second base now that Bogarts is?
He's playing some.
He's playing some. Okay.
He's been there a bit, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know where he was on the ballot, but he is a second baseman. But I don't know.
Right.
They should have been playing him at second base instead of signing middle infielders. But, but yeah, and I also want to shout out one more guy. I think I'm trying to remember who it was. I had somebody in mind that I wanted to shout out, but
Nolan Gorman. 60
No,
homers,
no,
or
it was
no?
not Nolan Gorman who has an 89 WRC plus. It was that we'll talk about him in a minute, but Jordan Westberg actually plays a lot of second base, so he could probably be on the list for second baseman as well, but he's not because we're going to talk about him in a minute. But he would probably be an all-star starter if he was at second base, but he's up against tough competition since they've got him listed at third base.
Yeah. Well, I
Probably
want to
difficult
mention.
for him to get in the NL.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to mention Gavin Lux. Okay.
Okay,
No, I'm just kidding.
that was the whole mention.
Yep, that was the whole mention. I just wanted to mention him.
All right,
Shout out.
there he is.
He's been terrible. Anyways,
Yeah.
let's jump over to the American. He has like under 600 OPS. It's not good. Let's jump over
So
to
he'd be
the
the Cubs'
American.
4-hitter.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay,
hey, sure.
The question is, can
Sorry,
Gavin Lux
I have to take shots.
can Gavin Lux hit the ball as far as he can throw it?
I don't know.
And that's bad because he can't throw it very far.
My best response to that is, can Cody Bellinger just play second base? Because we can make a trade right now. Okay.
I mean,
Enough jibber jabber and get off track of our teams because this is just funny. We could do it all day.
Yeah.
But let's go over to third base. Matt, you just mentioned Jordan Westberg in the American League, who is an option here, on the ballot out of the two options. He's batting 281, 13 homers, 48 RBIs, and 837 OPS. He's really broken out this year for that Orioles team who had a glut of infield prospects and talent. You weren't sure where they were going to get their playing time. At one point, it looked like Westberg was going to be the odd man out. He's actually played really well up to an all-star level here, but he's going up against Jose Ramirez, who's batting 280 with 23 homers, 76 RBIs, and 889 OPS, and just doing Jose Ramirez things.
yeah. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, Jose Ramirez is definitely the answer here. He's been really, really good. Damian laid it out for you. I mean, it's just he has been the same guy that Jose Ramirez has been the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, which means he's been one of the best players in all of Major League Baseball. He's the best third baseman in baseball. Jordan Westberg's been awesome, and like I said, if he was at second base, which he plays a little bit of both, then he would be the answer for me at second base. But they put him at third base, and the competition here is just tough. And in fact, the 5 of the top 6 in F4 at third base are out of the American League. So, you can also shout out Rafael Devers, who's been himself as well. And I want to shout out Josh Smith, too, who has a 384 on base percentage. He's been awesome. He's got a 139 WRC plus. He's played pretty good defense at third, and Isaac Paredes has been good as well. But Jose Ramirez is clearly the answer here. For the American League. And then the National League, I mean, I don't know why Manny Machado's on here other than he's just famous. Alec Boehm, I think, has definitely been the best guy. He has cooled off after like a scorching first month of the season, but he's been really good for the Phillies. And to be honest, I mean, after his last week, Matt Chapman might be the second best option here. But yeah.
Are we doing the NL too?
I guess. I mean, I thought we were going through both of them, but go ahead. You talk.
I mean, you said it all.
Sorry.
No, the Ramirez has been great. Devers and Josh Smith was the interesting one. The Rangers now have 2 really good third basemen, and the trade deadline's coming up, and they're underwhelming. So that kind of makes things interesting. Do they try to move a Josh Jung to pick something else up? I don't know. But yeah, if I'm picking in that NL group, I'm picking Alec Boehm. He's put together a really strong season, kind of finally realizing that first round potential that he was picked with a couple of years ago. 68 RBI puts him really high up the RBI list. I think it's top 5. So hitting in behind Kyle Schwarber, Bryce Harper, guys who walk a lot, that seems to be doing dividends for Alec Boehm, and he's coming to the plate with guys on base and he's driving them in, and it's a good aspect of a middle of the order hitter that you need your third baseman to be.
Yeah, I think those are both the easy picks for the third base slots there. So let's jump over to shortstop now. We'll stay in the National League here for a second and say how Mookie Betts should be the pick, but he's injured. and will not be playing in the All-Star game. Trey Turner is the other option, who's also only played 45 games this year. So this is one where you could tell the fans definitely came out to vote for, even though Mookie was probably the leading vote getter had he not got injured in the first place. But what do you guys think here?
I think Ellie De La Cruz was snubbed, man. What are the fans doing in Cincinnati? You got to get Ellie on this ballot, dude. I think he should be starting the game if Mookie wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with with Ellie. I mean, I think if Mookie was healthy, he would be the starter. But I mean, I would vote. In fact, I would vote for Mookie Betts on the ballot just because that means he gets someone gets the replacement to be the starter, and that would be Ellie probably. So that there's a way that Ellie starts the game, and he should. He's been the best shortstop that's not injured in the National League. So.
I do want to shout out Damien's franchise shortstop for our draft a few weeks ago, Mason Wynn for the Cardinals.
Yep.
He has been able to sustain that high batting average that we talked about. A guy with his speed is going to have to sustain, and he's been a pretty solid fielder, right? He's at 286, 112 WRC plus. Positive fielder, 1.5 WAR here at the break. You double that over, that's like a 3 WAR player. That's a pretty good player. So Mason Wynn's had a really good season. Francisco Lindor's got a batting average problem. He just seems to always now be hitting that 220 to 250 range, where he used to be kind of more of a contact hitter that got on base a lot and stole the base. And now he's kind of a whiffs first guy and just a good defender. He's still getting enough slug for that not to matter. He's got a 117 WRC plus. He could probably be the counter to De La Cruz on this list if you were going to update for injury. But yeah, I mean, it should have been Ellie, but it should have been Mookie changing positions and having a really good season until the hit by pitch.
Yeah. So let's jump over to the American League now, where I don't think you can go wrong with either option with Bobby Witt Jr. or Gunnar Henderson. Gunner's batting 288, 26 homers, 58 RBIs, 988 OPS, just absolutely insane. And then Bobby Witt Jr.'s had a 312 average, 12 homers, 54 RBIs, and 897 OPS, well living up to his big contract extension he got this offseason. But I think it's pretty clear that it's probably Gunnar here. What do you think, Matt?
I mean, I think it's extremely clear that it's Gunnar. I mean, and that's no offense to Bobby Witt, who has been incredible. These are two like top 5 players in all of baseball, and it's a shame that they have to both be. It's kind of like we were talking about with the third base. It's a shame that somebody has to go up against Jose Ramirez, who deserves to be in the All-Star game. Well, Bobby Witt deserves to be a All-Star starter, but Gunnar Henderson has been. I mean, Gunnar Henderson has almost been as good as Aaron Judge, who has having one of the best seasons ever. I mean, Gunnar Henderson has 26 homers at the halfway point of the season as a shortstop, playing elite defense. The whiffs have come down this year and the walks have come up. I mean, the guy has just been absolutely out of his mind incredible. A 177 WRC plus, 13 stolen bases. I mean, this guy, what can he not do? I mean, he has been unbelievable. And he 100% deserves to start the All-Star game. And Bobby Witt's been awesome too. But, I mean, it's tough. I mean, Bobby Witt will certainly be an All-Star. It's tough to not have him start the game in some way. But Gunnar Henderson's just been incredible.
I'll tell you what Gunnar Henderson reminds me of a little bit is that 90s and early 2000s Alex Rodriguez.
Yeah.
Is how he's playing right now. Not because it's just shortstop strictly, but like a shortstop with power, with speed, with defense, with on base, just a complete lack of weaknesses at the plate. Like this guy is, and he was the number 2 prospect in baseball, number 1 prospect in baseball for a little bit. He was there with Adley on the prospect lists. I don't think any of us really expected this from Gunnar Henderson. Again, Matt was right. Bobby Witt, incredible season. AL shortstops Carlos Correa has also had a really, really strong year. He had that really good stretch. Anthony Volpe is worth noting. The Yankees have needed some extra help in that lineup. Volpe has been that guy, but he's been struggling of late. It seems like the obvious pick is Gunnar, and I mean, if you're picking like a preemptive favorite for like MVP of this game, like it's probably between Gunnar and Judge, right? So.
Yeah. I want to point out one more thing with Gunnar too before we move on. I was reading something. I think it was Dan Zimborski the other day, who runs Zips, posted an article that Gunnar Henderson now had the highest projected WAR total for the next 5 years of any player in Major League Baseball. He passed Acuna after Acuna's knee injury, which I thought was incredible. That this guy, I mean, he was a number one prospect, but he was a number one prospect on what was thought to be a little bit of a weaker top end of the list year. He wasn't expected to be this, and this is like the highest level outcome, and it seems to be pretty sustainable what he's done so far this year too. So this has just been awesome to watch.
It really has been. Well, we just dealt with a Kansas City Royal versus Baltimore Oriole pick for shortstop. Let's just move that same battle over here to catcher, where we have Salvador Perez versus Adley Rutschman. Salvador Perez is hitting 281, 14 homers, 52 RBIs, and 824 OPS. And you have Adley, who's batting 294, 15 homers, 55 RBIs, and an 821 OPS. The batting average is a little bit of difference there, but the counting stats and the OPS are pretty near identical.
Yeah, they are. And, I want to note that Salvador Perez has had a really good season. He started off hot and he's certainly cooled down. He was, I think, one of the few hitters worse than Marcus Semien when I mentioned the worst hitters over the last month. His June has not been good, but the defense for Salvador Perez being a positive is I think like one of the first times in his career that he's actually been able to pull that off in terms of the kind of advanced defensive catcher statistics. But the pick here is Adley Rutschman. And I think this is going to be like the first of many all-star appearances at catcher in the AL for Adley Rutschman, barring a unforeseen breakout or, God forbid, some kind of injury. I think Adley's just going to start the all-star. You pencil him in for 10 years. Like, this is a guy who's just super consistent, a great hitter, 350 on base, 294 batting average, 134 WRC plus. He's put up 3 WAR. He's going to be like a 6 WAR catcher. I mean, I can't say enough about how excellent this pair of players that the Orioles have is, and how they're going to be a force to be reckoned with for many years to come, especially because I really think they're going to extend both of these guys. There's no way they let these guys leave.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's been definitely Adley Rutschman is the guy here. He's been awesome.
Yeah.
I think, like you said, Salvador Perez has been really good. I don't fully trust him going forward.
Yeah.
I think he's made some good adjustments. He's had a really good first half. But of course, this is a midseason. Who's been the best, and he's close. I do like Adley's defense just a little bit better than Salvador Perez. Although Salvador Perez has had a rebound defensively this year, Adley's the batting stats are so similar. 350 on base and a 471 slug for Adley and a 474 slug for Perez. Both have a 350 on base, so it's just crazy. But I guess the ballpark kind of comes into that, and of course the ballpark in Baltimore is now a ridiculous pitcher's park because of the way they did left field. So that's been a thing. But yeah, I mean, this has just been it's been fun to watch both of these guys, but I got to go with Adley. And like David said, yes, extend Adley, extend Gunnar, extend Westberg. They need to. I mean, they have a core that could really win. They could build a dynasty out of what they've got. And they've still got more in the minor leagues too. So
yeah, there's still a handful of guys left in the minor leagues. But let's jump over to the National League catcher spot now, where we have William Contreras and JT Realmuto. William Contreras batting 291, 9 homers, 50 RBIs, a 788 OPS. JT Realmuto is batting 261, 7 homers, 20 RBIs, 720 OPS. JT Realmuto is also hurt. He did have the knee surgery, I believe, a few weeks ago. He's projected to be back before the All-Star game, but I doubt he plays. But who do you guys think deserves to be the starter here?
Will Smith.
Yeah. I wasn't going to say it, okay, but
I know I had to jump in there, but go ahead, Matt.
I mean, I don't disagree with that. I mean, I think Will Smith and William Contreras have been pretty close. Will Smith's played about 11 fewer games, so that could be kind of he's still got a tiny bit more WAR. Will Smith has been really good defensively this year. way better than he's ever been defensively, which is a big deal because that's kind of really been his only like downside to his game in the past. William Contreras, of course, has been awesome offensively, and he hadn't been as good defensively as he was last year. He's still been good, but last year he had a breakout where felt like the Brewers just kind of fixed his defense. But he's had a little bit of a he's been back to being a good defensive catcher, but not being what he was last year so far. But he's been really good as a player. 2.4 WAR. I think obviously over JT Realmuto, who may or may not even be healthy. And JT Realmuto is still a good player, so it's not just a total like travesty that someone would say he should be an all-star. But it is when you're picking him over Will Smith and William Contreras, and and without Will Smith on this list, that William Contreras needs to be the vote. But
Yeah.
they're still good. And I want to shout out one guy that we didn't talk about with the American League. Ryan Jeffers has been really good in the American League for the Twins. That's about the third Twin we've shouted out as a as a kind of honorable mention type. He's been really good, and Logan O'Hoppy's been really, really good also at the plate. 125 WRC plus for a very young catcher is really impressive.
Mm-hmm.
So those two guys I thought needed a shout out.
Yeah, for sure. The Hoppies is even more impressive considering that he's coming off a shoulder injury last year.
Yes.
Too, so.
I guess I'll shout now, guys. Give Shea Langoliers his due now. 15 home runs for the lowly Oakland Athletics. Playing good defense out there. He's certainly doing well, I think. But I mean, William Contreras.
On base.
That's his game is swing for the fence, hit home run. William Contreras has really come into his own. I think he was a little bit better last year.
Yeah.
But this is certainly a case you can make of all-star appearance with some legacy that William Contreras deserved to start the game last year. I don't believe that he did. I think it was Realmuto last year. I might be wrong about that, but he certainly deserves consideration this year. I'd have picked Will Smith, but I'd vote William Contreras.
He actually started the All-Star game in 2022 as the DH.
With the Braves, that's right. I do remember that.
He was the DH.
Because he started with Wilson.
Yeah,
maybe exactly. Wilson actually started it last year.
He might have.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, let's jump over to the National League outfield now, where we have to pick three guys out of Nick Castellanos, Teoscar Hernandez, Brandon Marsh, Jurickson Profar, Fernando Tatis Jr., and Christian Yelich. Yeah.
Nick Castellanos, yeah, Matt. I think that's definitely the best option here.
Definitely.
Oh my God.
Phillies fans got a hold of this one.
Nick Castellanos has negative .6 WAR this year.
Yeah, I don't think that's. I don't think that's necessarily Nick Castellanos' fault, right? He's playing out. He's forced to play outfield because Schwarber's on the team, and so.
Well, he's got a 90 WRC plus as a DH. Then, even if he was a DH, like it's not good. He does not need to be on this list. He's been the second worst qualified outfielder in baseball. The only one worse is in the American League, and it's Mitch Haniger, which is kind of sad.
Yeah, it is. I will say I think my three picks here are Tatis, Profar, and Teoscar Hernandez. I think those three are kind of the easy picks based on their season so far. Yelich has been good, but he has spent a decent amount of time hurt this year, and Teoscar's hitting, 18 homers. He's going to go to, he's going to get close to 40 over there with the Dodgers, sitting behind Shohei. Tatis has been a kind of an all-star perennially since he came into the league, and Jurickson Profar's had a nice rebound. So getting to start the All-Star game would be a really nice consolation prize. So yeah, I mean that'd be my picks here for the ballot, but I think I could hear an argument for Yelich. I think I'd rather have Teoscar over Yelich based on their season right now.
Yeah, I'm with you on those. I think Jurickson Profar is the obvious one here that should be an all-star. Very good story. Has had a rebound year after last year too. Like he had a few decent years with the Padres where he didn't really fully break out, but he was like fine. And then last year he was like the worst player in baseball, and part of that was going to Colorado and just being bad, but this has been fun to watch him rebound like this year. 2.8 WAR, 159 WRC plus. It's crazy for him. Yeah, so I would go with him and Tatis as well. There's really not a lot of good options. There's been so many outfield injuries in the National League this year.
Yeah.
There's just not a ton of good options so far, and I think those two guys for sure. And then out of the rest of them, I mean, Teoscar Hernandez has been good. I think, I mean, I don't have it. I have the qualified leaderboards up, but I mean, I really like what Christian Yelich has done this year, but he's been, he's missed time. So
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't know how much time exactly. I'm trying to find it right now. How much time he's missed, but
I think he's been out a month.
yeah,
I
I
think
mean,
he's lost 30 games.
yeah, I mean, because of that, I would probably vote for Teoscar Hernandez out of this list. But I do think that there's a couple guys that should be here. I think
Played
Brandon
58
Nimmo should
games.
be on the list. He's been 140 WRC plus, and is he lead? Second in the National League out of outfielders in the National League in FWAR. And then
Yeah.
also Jackson Merrill honestly should be here. I mean, I know they probably didn't want, 3 Padres would be crazy, but I mean, Jackson
Yeah.
Merrill's been right up there with them. I mean,
His heater is very
yeah,
recent too. Merrill's is. He's been
Yeah.
really strong
yeah,
this last month. I think he hit 9 homers in June.
yeah. I
Did
mean,
Jackson Merrill?
yeah, and I mean Christian Yelich has 2.2 WAR, so
Yeah.
that's a pretty good bit more than Teoscar in a smaller sample. It's just it's hard to compare him at only 58 games. But I think,
One more name
yeah,
for you, Matt.
mhm,
Heliot Ramos of the
yeah,
Giants has 10 homers in 48 games, 2 WAR.
yep,
I would put him in the Christian Yelich bin. He hasn't played enough, but what he has played, he's kept the Giants afloat. I think that's a pretty good name. Hit a home run, I think, last week against the Cubs as well. So you'll get to see that guy this weekend.
yep.
Yeah. All right, so now let's jump over to the American League outfield where we already said Aaron Judge is locked in. So we got 4 names to pick from. We got to pick 2 here. Stephen Kwan hitting 367, 7 homers, 24 RBIs, and a 961 OPS. Anthony Santander is hitting 230 with 22 homers, 55 RBIs, 802 OPS. Juan Soto, who's hitting 303, 20 homers, 61 RBIs, a 1005 OPS. And then Kyle Tucker, who's batting 266, 19 homers, 40 RBIs, and a 979 OPS.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, Judge winning the player vote overall, being locked in. I mean, he was going to win anyways, but he's got 6 WAR. I mean, he's been incredible. Just a shout out, the 31 home runs in 84 games he's hit. He's on a pace that might be better than his 2022 season.
Yeah.
So, but moving on from him, I mean, I've got to go with Stephen Kwan and Juan Soto. Juan Soto's the obvious pick here. He's been incredible for the Yankees. He's second in WAR out of outfielders, all outfielders, not just the American League. But then you get Kyle Tucker's injured right now. He's only played 60 games. He has been absolutely incredible when he's played. But Stephen Kwan's been probably, I mean, I think Stephen Kwan's been hurt too at times, but I mean he's been
Yeah.
incredible. 3.5 WAR in 56 games. A 383 BABIP is really high, and so sample size probably plays a role in his, how well he's performed this year. But I mean, he's got a 177 WRC plus, playing elite defense in left field, and I mean the guy's really good. So I think you've got to go with those guys since Kyle Tucker is injured right now. I do think that Kyle Tucker probably, if they had all stayed healthy, would all year would probably have been better than Kwan. But I think I got to go with Stephen Kwan over him, but just a little bit. And of course, with Kyle Tucker being hurt, it's not that big of a deal anyway. So
Here's the deal. The guy that needs to be on this list is not on this list. And that's the problem. It's Jarren Duran of Boston, who has a 349 on base percentage and 20 steals at halfway here in the season. And at 130 WRC plus. He's put up 3.4 WAR, which is more than Kyle Tucker in less, obviously in less games. But Tucker's been hurt. Stephen Kwan has also missed a lot of time. I'm privy to awarding the players that have been able to stay on the field for the entire season. I'm also a little bit wary of the Guardians right now. They've changed the stadium and it's become kind of a wind tunnel right there on the lake, where they've gone up to like second or third in park factor this season for home runs. Stephen Kwan getting a lot of that slug out of his home park. Jose Ramirez has really been golfing the ball up into the sky to get the wind to pull it out. Um, Nothing against them. They're playing it right. The pitching on their side has been fine at home too, but um, the Guardians are making me a little bit wary. So I'll go with Kwan, but my vote would have been Jaron Duran. He's had a very, very good season, and he had a very good second half of last season as well. He's really established himself as kind of a long-term outfielder that Boston can rely on. So the other guy I want to shout out for the AL is Riley Green for the Tigers. He might get some consideration as the Tigers like only option if they don't make Jack Flaherty the only option
Screwball.
for the Tigers. So Screwball, duh, yeah, he'll be in there. So Tigers he's been the Tigers' best offensive player, and he's put together a 133 WRC plus and 2.2 WAR. So certainly a strong season for Riley Green, but he's kind of mired in a group that includes Anthony Santander. We didn't mention him, but um, he's just a bunch of guys who have like 1 to 2 WAR and have had decent seasons, but Riley Green might be my favorite of those guys. So there you go.
Absolutely. Well, let's shift over to the DH, which is our last official spot on this ballot, at least. So, our options for the American League DH is Yordan Alvarez, who's batting 294, 17 homers, 43 RBIs, and a 900 OPS. And Ryan O'Hearn, who's batting 285, 10 homers, 34 RBIs, and 808 OPS. I got to give a lot of credit to O'Hearn for what he's been able to do, being a platoon guy who was DFA'd a couple years ago by the Royals. But I think it's pretty clear that it's probably Yordan.
It is pretty clear.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy. I mean, Jordan's having a down year probably for Jordan standards. I mean, he's been good, but he's having a little bit of a down year for his standards, but he's still clearly the pick here. I mean, Ryan O'Hearn's been good. He's a good story. He's a 130 WRC plus, which is a very solid DH, but there's not a ton of great DH options in the American League this year. Brent Rooker is another guy we can maybe shout out. I don't know if he was listed on the ballot as an outfielder or DH since that was, since we're past that on the ballot now, but he's been really solid. I mean, he's striking out an absolute torrid pace, but he's hit a lot of home runs, hitting the ball really hard. So he has good numbers. But yeah, I mean, Jordan, just with the 148 WRC plus, which just feels like so low for him. He's been, he's still really, really good. He deserves to start the DH.
Yeah, he does. I want to note that Jordan, you would think, is like a high K guy. If you watch that home run from the World Series last year, I mean he's just this huge hulking dude. You'd think big strikeout guy, right? I don't think he's ever had a strikeout rate over like 20%. He's got like an elite hit tool on top of being a 30 home run titan that can just hit game winning World Series home runs at will. 24.2 in 2021 was his highest K rate. It's only gone down over the course of his career. This guy is an alien in terms of hitting, and I imagine that Jordan should be starting this All-Star game.
Yeah,
he's actually pretty good at outfield too, which is kind of surprising. But
yeah,
well, so let's jump over to the NLDH. David and I talked about Shohei all of last week, so we'll just let Matt you basically go over this one because I think he's obviously going to be the pick here over Kyle Schwarber. But I'll let you talk. David and I talked about it for like 20 minutes last week, so Matt, go ahead here.
I mean, Shohei Ohtani clearly has been the guy here. He's been probably the second best hitter in baseball behind Aaron Judge this year. He's been incredible. 26 home runs, a 188 WRC plus, he's 400 on base, 635 slugging. I mean, he's been awesome. 16 stolen bases. I mean, he's stealing bases still too. So He's been incredible. Um, you know, I mean, Kyle Schwarber doesn't belong in the top 2. He should be number 3 behind Marcell Ozuna. But you know, I
It's a
guess
popularity
Phillies fans,
contest.
yeah, it's a
Nobody likes him.
popularity contest, and I mean, Kyle Schwarber's also on the IL, so you know,
Yeah.
but Marcell Ozuna needs to be here. He's got 21 homers, 165 WRC plus. He's got his WRC plus is 31 points higher than Kyle Schwarber's, and so I mean he should be here, but it is what it is. But yeah, Shohei, it doesn't even matter because Shohei's clearly the pick, and
Yeah.
I mean I think Marcell Ozuna will probably be in the All Star game as the backup anyway. So
So that is going to do it for our official ballot. Looking back, we have Vlad and Harper at first base, Altuve and Ketel Marte at second, Jose Ramirez and Alec Boehm at third, Gunnar and Mookie at shortstop, Adley Rutschman and William Contreras at catcher, Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, Stephen Kwan, Teoscar Hernandez, Profar, and Tatis and the outfield, and then Shohei and Yordan at DH. But what we wanted to do is we also wanted to pick like a pitcher that we thought deserved to be the starting pitcher of the game so far. We'll each do one per league. So, David, who do you got for the American League that you would like to see start?
For the American League, all right. I would like for I'm trying to do my plan is to have like the best story pitch in each be the starter in the All-Star game, because really who starts the All-Star game kind of not super important. I'm sure these starting pitchers all want to be the starter, but at the end of the day, not a huge deal. I'm going to go with Tanner Houck to start the All-Star game over Garrett Crochet and Cole Reagans. I think Houck is a guy who wasn't expected to be here, and he does have the ERA advantage over those two guys, where his 2.67 ERA is lower than the 3.02, 3.03. So I'm going to roll with Tanner Houck. I think Tariq Skubal is also going to have a chance to be in this group, and he's got a 2.32 ERA. But Houck's just been a guy who doesn't walk anybody, and he's coming out of a spot of a relative. He's just hasn't been a guy that you would expect to be here, right? He's a surprising pick, and so I would want to give him that nod and go to Tariq Skubal in the second inning, right? Like that's kind of how I would want to do this. So I'll go with Tanner Houck.
yeah, that's a good pick. That's kind of who I was thinking, but I'll go with Garrett Crochet instead. I've been high on him coming into the season just because this guy was a very high rated prospect coming out of college, throwing really hard. His stuff is elite from the left side, and he just had not been able to stay healthy. And this year he stayed healthy, and all the advanced numbers really like him. And honestly, having a 3.02 ERA on the White Sox, it might be the most difficult. It might be more difficult than having a 1.2 ERA on another team. I mean, the White Sox
They have Eric Fed with a 3.23 ERA. They got two guys.
Hey, Eric Fed's been
two guys. They've been good.
Awesome. You put him on that list too. But yeah, I mean, he's been Garrett Crochet's been amazing, and I think that's a really good story too. I probably would start Tanner Houck and Tariq Skubals. I agree with him. I mean, he should be in the running. They'll all be all those guys along with Cole Reagans as well will be all stars. So definitely a good group there. A lot of AL Central in there with Garrett Crochet and Cole Reagans and Tariq Skubal. I mean, Seth Lugo's top 10 in WAR. He's been really good too. Can't forget about him. He's thrown more innings than any of those guys and has a lower ERA. So pretty incredible.
Yeah, I think Skubal would have been my pick. He's just one of the most fun guys to watch, and he just absolutely looks like he just dominates every single time out there. Just very, very imposing. So you can't go wrong with Crochet and Houck. I mean, they're the top 2 in WAR there. Skubal's had 2 less starts, but he's close in innings. I think they just kind of skipped him a couple times here just because he's coming off the injury from last year, but not a bad option there. And we all went chalk with like 3 of the top 4 in WAR in the American League. So let's jump over to the National League now. So Matt, who do you think should start in the National League?
So in the National League, I am going to be a homer and pick Chris Sale. He's been so good this year for the Braves. He has a 244 xFIP. His ground ball rate is skyrocketed. He's at a 49% ground ball rate while maintaining the fact that he strikes tons of guys out and never walks anybody. So, I mean, Chris Sale has been absolutely insane. He's averaging 95 on his fastball again. Um, the guy's been out of his mind. He hadn't thrown a ton of innings because they're just trying to limit him to keep him healthy. But he's been really, really good. And I'll let David talk about some other guys, but Chris Sale's been number 2 in WAR, or he's tied for first in WAR in the National League out of pitchers. So.
You aren't ready for me. So as I said, don't really care about who specifically starts the All-Star game,
Yeah.
but I'm starting Paul Skeens. I'm starting Paul Skeens. I'm going to do it. 9 starts, but he has a 2.06 ERA, which is second in Major League Baseball. If you've pitched at least 50 innings, he's pitched 52 behind Reynaldo Lopez. I was thinking about Reynaldo Lopez as well. I think Reynaldo Lopez should be at the All-Star game.
Yeah.
That transition has been excellent, but give me Paul Skeens to start the All-Star game because that might be the best way to get him on the All-Star game list is if I'm the manager and I declare Paul Skeens my starter, he's got to be on the team. So there you go. And then, obviously the other guys will all file in, but, firing away a hotshot rookie as the All-Star game starter, that would get some eyes on the game, I think. So that'd be who I'd pick.
Yeah, Paul Skeens has been awesome. I watched him pitch a full game for the first time on Saturday, and with the exception of Jared Kelenic, he's almost untouchable. So he's really good, and I think we also just have to mention like all the Phillies rotation, like Zach Wheeler, of course, he's always good, but Ranger Suarez and Christopher Sanchez have both been incredible. Tyler Glasnow has been awesome. And also, like you mentioned, Ronaldo Lopez still has the 170 ERA, so he has thrown a pretty decent amount fewer innings than any of these other guys, and I don't know how sustainable his ERA is. I think he's been really good, like just on a performance basis, but I just don't know that he's had some pretty good luck this year so far, but he's still he's still been an awesome transition, like you mentioned, and so Logan Webb as well. He's been good as well. He's always good, but
I got a note because they're going to get one of them to the All-Star game, but the Cubs' entire rotation has been really good. That's the one aspect of the team that has actually performed really well. Justin Steele's been very, very good. Jameson Taillon has actually been really good. He had a 10 strikeout game the other week. Shota Imanaga started off the season really strong. He had that one blow-up start that knocked his ERA up above 3, but otherwise has been really strong as well. So I think one of those guys will be the Cubs' lone representative at the All-Star game. So want to throw them out there. And then I do want to note that one of my other considerations was Sonny Gray. He has been absurdly good in a Cardinals uniform, much to my chagrin.
Yeah, well, that will do the All-Star portion of this. But before we head out, we wanted to talk about James Wood getting called up to the Washington Nationals today, making his debut, getting his first hit in his first at-bat, which is always cool to see. But he was one of the highly touted prospects in that Juan Soto trade a couple years ago. Looking at his season that he had in AAA so far in 52 games, he had hit 10 homers, 10 stolen bases, hit 353, a 463 on base, almost 600 slugging, a 173 WRC plus there, walk rate of 17%, K rate of 18%. I think he had proven everything that he had needed to, that he was ready. But what do you guys think of James Wood as his fast rise through the minor leagues? I mean, last year he was playing high A ball, and now he's in the major leagues here. And what your outlook is for Wood going forward?
I absolutely love what I've seen from James Wood this year. I mean, he's one of those guys that I had questions about because sometimes those big guys who have really long arms and long levers that have some swing and miss in the low minors, that profile always kind of scares me. Just I guess I'm just gonna have a little bit of bias against that profile. I don't really know why that's such a scary profile. I value plate discipline and everything, and making contact pretty highly. But James Wood has been incredible this year, and how well he's cut down on that strikeout rate. I mean, last year, in high A and double A, his first year, full year with the Nationals organization, he was striking out at about a 30% rate, and he looked like Adam Dunn or something, where he's going to hit a lot of homers, but he's probably going to strike out a ton, and it's going to limit his overall value. But this year, he's cut his strikeout rate all the way down to 18%. So that's been incredible. His walk rate is at 17%. So this is a guy who has really, really, really impressed in the adjustments he's made. Um, and it'll be interesting to see if he's able to, what his defensive value ends up being, because I think he's been playing center field some in the minor leagues. Is that right?
I believe so.
Yeah, and I know he's probably more destined for a corner, but this is a guy that there are not many players with the ceiling of James Wood. I mean, this is a guy that, like, it's unlikely that he hits his total ceiling because that's such a rare player. But I mean, this guy has an Aaron Judge ceiling. I mean, he does. I'm not saying he's going to be Aaron Judge. That's the type of like potential he has. I think he's probably going to be somewhere more in. I think he's going to be really good. I doubt he ends up being that good, uh, but yeah, I mean, this guy is incredible, and I can't wait to see what he's able to do the rest of this year at the big league level. He's only 21 years old too. He can barely buy a beer. I mean, he's a young guy. He's getting his first call. I'm really excited for this.
David, you got any thoughts?
He's probably talking while muted.
Or we lost him. One of the two.
Him.
All right. Well, David just doesn't get a talk on this topic, apparently. But like everything you said, I like what James Wood has done so far. I liked him in the Padres system, and I was really mad that he was going to have to. The Padres were going to get another really good player, coming up through their system. Happy they moved him to Washington, so I can enjoy actually watching him now. And I think he's going to turn in the next couple of years. He's going to be one of the star level players that we're going to be talking about as like top 10-ish players in the game. He has everything you need to be that type of player.
Yeah, and I wanna just briefly, since we're talking about this, this guy is the third guy from the Juan Soto trade to get his to join the big league nationals. And if you look at that trade right now, that trade is an absolute dumpster fire for the Padres. Mackenzie Gore has 2 WAR this year, has a 3.60 ERA, a 3.14 FIP. He's really turned a corner. He's not walking guys as much as he was. He's really figured it out. He's pitched very well tonight too, 5 2/3 with 8 strikeouts and only 1 run allowed. I think that was also against. I think that might have been against the Mets, but his FIP is below 3 now. So he's been incredible. And then CJ Abrams, I don't believe in CJ Abrams quite like some do with his breakout, but I mean, at the plate, he's got a 139 WRC plus so far this year. I really think that if he could figure out the defense, which has been pretty miserable since he's been in the big leagues, but a lot of it kind of due to mistakes more than just athletic talent. This trade just looks absolutely. James Wood now kind of showing that he's figured it out, and hopefully, if he makes a splash in the big leagues, like Robert Hassel's ended up not pinning out at least as of now, but those other guys, that's 3 potential all-star caliber players that got moved in that deal, with James Wood having as high of a ceiling as anybody. So, I mean, that trade looks absolutely horrible for the Padres, especially considering the fact that they, didn't make the playoffs with Juan. Well, they did make the one playoff run with Juan Soto, but that was the half season of him where he wasn't even himself. And then last year he was really good, but they didn't make the playoffs. And then they traded him for a lot less than they gave up for him. So that trade looks horrible for the Padres and very, very good for the Nationals. That was almost a total franchise reset trade for the Nationals. And it was really impressive that they got what they did out of that.
Yeah, the Nationals look like they have 3 franchise players heading forward. And even Hassel has figured it out a little bit this year. He's back up to a 114 WRC plus, batting 280 in AAA. Striking out, he's got a strikeout rate down to 21% now. Walk rate still almost up to 12. So he needs to find a little bit more slug, that's for sure. But he's starting to figure it out too. So very good trade for the Nationals, and I'm excited to see what James Wood does in the long haul. But that will wrap up this week's episode. I believe next week we're going to be doing a mock draft episode, talking everything before the draft happens the week after that. And then we're heading into All-Star game time. So be on the lookout for all of what we're going to be doing. Follow us on our X page so you make sure you know when we're going live. Subscribe on the YouTube. Hit the bell so you know that when we're going live on YouTube as well. But thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of the Bat Flip Podcast, and we'll catch you guys here next week.